day, students, and welcome to our 5th week of studying electronic products assembly and servicing. And our focus for this week is preparing and interpreting technical drawing. We will have learning outcome number 1 for day 13, identify different kinds of technical drawings. Learning objectives. At the end of the learning period, you shall be able to know the purpose of each technical drawing in electronics, identify the different technical drawings used in electronics, and answer a short assessment. For your pre-test, I will be showing you different kinds of technical drawing. All you have to do is to use the following initials to identify the type of diagram. BL for block diagram, PD for pictorial diagram, SD for schematic diagram, and ICL for IC layout diagram. Now, let's begin. First, it is a schematic diagram. Number 2, this one is a block diagram. 3, pictorial diagram. 4, block diagram. 5, pictorial diagram. 6, pictorial diagram. 7, a schematic diagram. 8, block diagram. Number 9, schematic diagram. And last number, block diagram. So probably now you have an idea of how each diagram looks like. Before we proceed with our today's lesson, let's have a recap of your lecture on maintenance of measuring instruments. Choose the letter of the best correct answer. Number 1. What is the instrument that serves as a 3 measuring instrument in one? A. Audio generator. B. Oscilloscope. C. Signal generator. Or D. Voltmeter. 2. Which of the following parts should be adjusted when switching to current, resistance, or capacitance reading? A. Pointer. B. Range selector. C. Test probes. Or D. 0-ohm adjustment knob. Number 3. What should be the range when testing an outlet? A. 10 direct current voltage. B. 10 ohms. C. 110 alternating current voltage. Or D. 250 alternating current voltage. 4. What should be the range when testing continuity? A. 10 direct current voltage. B. 10 ohms. C. 110 alternating current voltage. Or D. 250 alternating current voltage. 5. Where should the function switch rest if an off position is not available? A. 10 direct current voltage. B. 10 ohms. C. 110 alternating current voltage. Or D. 250 alternating current voltage. 6. Where should the function be set when measuring current and voltage? A. Lower than expected voltage. B. Exactly as the expected voltage. C. A little higher than the expected voltage. Or D. Highest range setting for resistance measurement. 7. Which of the following is not advisable when keeping a multimeter? A. In a cold, dry place. B. Near electronic devices. C. Place free from vibrations. Or D. Away from any magnetic devices. 8. Why is it advisable to remove batteries of a multimeter when storing? A. To extend battery life. B. To ensure internal connections of the LEDs are okay. C. To avoid damage on the internal electronic components. Or D. To avoid accumulation of corrosion at the battery connections. Number 9. Which of the following should be avoided when testing an outlet? A. Set the range knob to 250 alternating current voltage. B. Do not touch the metal part of the probes. C. Intertwine the probes touching each other. Or D. Hold the probes and place the tester to a stable position. And last number, which of the following is the safest way of keeping the multi-tester? A. Place it on lower cabinets. B. Keep it out of the children's reach. C. Keep the tester up on a designated box. Or D. Place it along the other tools in electronics. Now let's see if all your answers are correct. If you got 8 to 10 points, congratulations, you passed the recap. If you got 7 points and below, maybe you need to study more of the previous lesson. Our lesson, technical drawings. There are different types of diagrams or drawings used to represent a certain circuit in electronics. These are used to better understand the functionality of devices and used also as basis for troubleshooting. Lines, symbols, boxes, and icons are used to represent a certain part, process, or electronic component in a circuit. It is used to better understand how the components are connected to each other. For today's lesson, we will study 4 types of diagrams used in electronics. We have block diagram, schematic diagram, pictorial diagram, and IC layout diagram. Let us begin with block diagram. It is a type of diagram that shows the flow of process in a circuit. It is the easiest one to design because it uses only boxes and arrows to represent the components of a circuit. Here is an example of a block diagram of an FM transmitter. As you can see, the process begins with the microphone, so it is the first component on the first box. Then you can see here an arrow going to the preamplifier, from the preamplifier to the modulator to RF amplifier, and the last box is the antenna. So meaning to say, the last box here is where the process ends. Now let us learn how to make a block diagram. The first step is for you to identify the system or the circuit of a device. Here is an example of a power supply unit. The first component that receives a voltage is the transformer. So with your block diagram, you have to identify where the voltage starts and where it ends. So that is the first step, identify the circuit. Second step is for you to create and label the diagram. Start by drawing the boxes and connect it with lines. Write the first component on the first box and up to the last box. And the third and last step is for you to indicate input and output. If your diagram has no arrows like this one, we uses only lines Then we have to identify where the process begins and where it ends by putting the words input and output. And that's how you make a block diagram. And the second diagram is a schematic diagram. It is a type of drawing that shows connections represented by symbols and lines. It helps in showing series and parallel connections and as well as exact terminal connections of components. Here is an example of a schematic diagram. As you can see, the components are represented by schematic symbols and it shows the terminal connections. This is a detailed diagram. So if you are going to make a troubleshooting, you can refer to this type of diagram because the polarities of the components are exactly given here. Unlike with the block diagram, it cannot be used for troubleshooting because it only shows the process on where the voltage starts and where it ends. Then we have the third one, pictorial diagram. It is a type of diagram which shows the visual appearance of the circuit. Here is an example of a pictorial diagram. On the left side is the schematic diagram where the components are represented by schematic symbols. And on the right side, it is now shown as the actual electronic component. So another example, the first one is a battery, this one is an alternating current, and so on the actual, we can see an outlet drawing. That is how a pictorial diagram looks like. And for the last one, we have IC layout diagram, or also known as IC mask, intended for ICs only. IC stands for integrated circuit. It refers to the internal design of a semiconductor component. It is made up of multiple layers or mask of metal oxide and semiconductor material to form an integrated circuit. It represents the geometry as well as the size of different semiconductor layers and their connection. It describes the internal structure and are used in manufacturing and designing integrated circuits. Below is an example of an IC layout diagram. Let's have a drill or practice about your knowledge on different types of diagrams. For our first activity, I want you to identify the following statements as to true or false. Number 1. Various types of electrical diagrams are used to represent a certain circuit. Number 2. Technical drawings helps in understanding connections between components. Answers: 1. True. 2. True. Number 3. Block diagram is used to show the actual image of the components. 4. Block diagram uses boxes and arrows to show the flow of the circuit. Answers: 3. False. 4. True. Number 5. The boxes in a block diagram are important points of interest in the system from input, storage, and output. 6. Identifying the system is the first step in making a block diagram. Answers: 5. False. Storage is not included. 6. True. Number 7. Schematic diagram uses symbols to show the series and parallel connection between the components. 8. The schematic diagrams also shows the exact terminal connections. Answers: 7. True. 8. True. 9. A pictorial diagram is not advisable to use in troubleshooting an actual circuit. 10. IC mask is another name for IC layout. diagram. Answers: 9. True. A schematic diagram is the only diagram which is used for troubleshooting because it shows the exact internal terminals of the components. Number 10. True. And now for our second activity, let's see if you can make a block diagram. Prepare the following boxes and label the first one as input and the last box as output. I am going to tell you how a power supply works. All you have to do is to identify the components as to its proper order from input going to output. Let us now begin. From the AC source, a step-down transformer converts the 250 alternating current into 12 alternating current. It will then pass the 12 alternating current voltage to 4 diodes. The diodes will convert the 12 alternating current voltage into 12 direct current voltage and pass it to the capacitor. Now let us see if you have identified the components. Let's continue. After then, it will be received by the transistor, which will limit the output voltage to 12 direct current voltage unless a different unit is used. If the power supply uses LM7805, then the output will be 5 direct current voltage regardless of the voltage given from the transformer. Now let's see if you have identified the next component. And for the last part, from the transistor, a LED will light up to indicate that the power supply unit is functional. Okay, now let us see if you have made your block diagram perfect. Let's begin with AC source, step-down transformer, diodes, capacitor, transistor, and LED. We have input as AC source and LED as our output. And congratulations if you have made the exact block diagram. To wrap up our lesson, I want you to answer the following by writing the purpose of the following technical drawings on the table. Prepare this after watching the video. Valuing. Why is it necessary to know the purpose of each technical drawing? How will it help a technician in the field of work? And what will you do to enhance your knowledge on technical drawings? To test your understanding of our lesson, let's answer the post test. Choose the best correct answer. Number 1. What does electrical diagrams and drawings represent? A. Components. B. Connections. C. Circuit. Or D. Wiring. 2. What is the main purpose of electrical diagrams? A. To simplify complicated circuits. B. To get familiarized with electrical symbols. C. To apply technical drafting in electronics. D. To understand the connection between components. 3. Which of the following is used to represent the flow of process in a circuit? A. Block diagram. B. IC layout. C. Pictorial diagram. Or D. A schematic diagram. Number 4. What is the focus of a block diagram? A. Components. B. Between input and output. C. Only input and output. Or D. Wirings and connections. 5. What is the first step in making a block diagram? A. Verify accuracy. B. Identify the system. C. Indicate input and output. Or D. Create and label the diagram. 6. Which of the following diagrams is the easiest and simplest illustration? A. Block diagram. B. IC layout. C. Pictorial diagram. Or D. Schematic diagram. What type of diagram uses symbols and lines to show electrical connections? For number 7, A. Block diagram. B. IC layout. C. Pictorial diagram. Or D. Schematic diagram. Number 8. Which of the following is not shown in a schematic diagram? A. Actual components. B. Parallel connection. C. Series connection. Or D. Terminal connection. 9. Which of the following diagrams represents an actual visual appearance of a circuit? A. Block diagram. B. IC layout. C. Pictorial diagram. Or D. Schematic diagram. And for the last number, 10. What is the other term for layout diagram? A. Integrated circuit. B. Designated diagram. C. Mask diagram. Or D. Semiconductor. Now let us see if all your answers are correct. Okay, if you got 8 to 10 points, congratulations, you passed our post test. But if you got 7 points and below, just watch the video back again and answer the post test. These are the references for today's lesson. Thank you and have a good day.